folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen. This week we are doing another tag video. This one is called Revenge of the Horror Sequel Tag. Yes. And this is going to be the sequel to the original horror sequel tag, which was created by Rob from RD Horrorfest a few years ago. So I thought it'd be fun to do a follow-up to that one, a sequel to the sequel tag. Alright, so this is going to be a lot of fun, guys. All questions about our favorite horror sequels. Number one is, what is your favorite underrated horror sequel? I have a couple for that, and the first one is going to be Bride of Re-Animator. That's a film that a lot of people don't talk about. You never really hear people talk about that, and I think it's a great follow-up to the original. You know, you got Jeffrey Combs returning, you got Bruce Abbott returning, you even have David Gale returning as Dr. Hill's head, you know. I think it's just so much fun. It's crazy. It's over the top. It's just nuts. I love it. And the second one in that answer would be Day of the Dead, a film that often gets overshadowed by the first two films in George Romero's Dead series. And rightfully so. We're talking about two of the greatest zombie movies of all time, Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead. So it's tough shoes to fill. But I think he did a fantastic job with this. I love this movie, and this has some of my favorite scenes in the franchise, and probably the most well-known, recognizable zombie of all time, Bub. Number two, what is your favorite slasher sequel? So for me, that's definitely going to be Halloween 2 from 1981. I've spoken so much about this film on my channel, and I don't think I need to say much more, but I absolutely love this movie. Number three, name a horror sequel that you enjoy that everyone else seems to hate. So for me, that's going to be The Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, baby. Absolutely love this film. I don't get the hate. I don't get why people hate this movie so much. I know that there is kind of a drastic change in tone that a lot of people have a problem with, but I think Tobe Hooper did an amazing job in this film. It's so much fun, it's so crazy, it's so zany, it's wild, it's over the top, but I love it. Number four, do you have a horror sequel you enjoy that is a sequel in name only? And doesn't really tie into the events of the original film. So for me, that's going to be Brides of Dracula. So yeah, this is the second film in the Hammer Dracula series. And yeah, it's really just in name only. Dracula isn't even in the movie. And the only thing that ties it to the horror of Dracula is that Van Helsing returns, played by Peter Cushing. Other than that, that's the only thing that really ties it to Horror of Dracula. Other than that, this is just a one-shot story, really. Number five, what is your favorite Part 2 in a horror franchise? So I hate to be repetitive, but I'm going to say Halloween 2 from 1981 once again. Number six, what is your favorite Part 3 in a horror franchise? Now, for a lot of people, that's kind of where the franchise sometimes get derailed, you know. But not in this case, for sure, and that is A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors. Everybody loves that movie. I mean, it's just a classic. Number seven, is there a horror sequel that you enjoy more than the original film? That's tough, but I'm going to say Dawn of the Dead, which is the sequel to Night of the Living Dead from 1968 by George Romero. To me, this is the greatest zombie film ever made. It's the most epic zombie film of all time. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And not to say that I don't love the original Night of the Living Dead, because I absolutely do. But I think this ups the ante in every way. It's just a masterpiece. Number 8, what is the worst horror sequel of all time? Now, I could have picked any sequel in this franchise, literally, because I hate every sequel in this franchise. And that is the Howling franchise. And I absolutely adore the original film from 1981, The Howling. It's phenomenal. It's my favorite werewolf movie of all time. Maybe that's why, because I hold it in so high regard, that I just cannot stand the sequels. Now, the one that really made me feel like, what in the hell am I watching right now? Was Howling 6, The Freaks. That's the only one where I was like, Jesus, are you kidding me? This is insane. Ugh. You got a werewolf stuck in this circus carnival sideshow with a vampire in there. I'm like, what the hell does any of this have to do with the original movie? Number 9 is, what is your favorite horror prequel? I'm going to say the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Beginning, which was the prequel to the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2003, starring R. Lee Ermey. And man, I really enjoyed this one. I might even like it even better than the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I thought it was really well done. So yeah. Number 10, is there a horror sequel you feel had all the ingredients to make a great follow-up to the original, but failed miserably? There's a lot like that. I'm going to say Fright Night Part 2. Now, yeah, it had all the ingredients. You had a good director, Tommy Lee Wallace. You had William Ragsdale returning as Charlie Brewster. You had Roddy McDowall returning as Peter Vincent. So yeah, you had the right ingredients, but to me, it failed miserably. I think it's extremely inferior to the original film. It was just extremely disappointing for me. I remember waiting for it to come out, because I thought it was going to come out in the theaters and be like a big movie, and it's like, next thing I knew, it was on VHS. I'm like, what happened? You know? Did it actually get released in theaters? If it did, it must have been a real small release. But yeah, never enjoyed that movie. I know a lot of people do, but I don't. Next one I'd say is Exorcist 2, The Heretic, of course. It had all the right ingredients. You had a great cast. You had Linda Blair returning as Regan. You had a great cast. You had Louise Fletcher. You had William Holden. You had James Earl Jones. What a great cast. And it still managed to make a flop. I don't know what the hell they were thinking, what they were smoking when they made that movie, but holy crap. Number 11, name a horror sequel you feel completely derailed the franchise and ruined it for you. For me, it's going to be Halloween Resurrection. This movie is the reason why they had to do a remake and then had to do another trilogy with David Gordon Green's trilogy. Yeah, this like ruined everything with the franchise, you know. Coming off Halloween H2O, which had such a great ending, which should have been the definitive ending of the franchise. And they just threw it all out the window for a quick cash grab. And that's all this movie is a quick cash grab, just trying to make money on the Halloween franchise. That's all it is. Number 12, name a sequel that is the best made, most faithful follow-up to the original, but may not necessarily be your favorite in the franchise. For me, that's going to be Dracula, Prince of Darkness, from the Hammer Dracula franchise. I know a lot of people love this film. A lot of people consider this to be the best sequel in the franchise, but and it is a very well-made film. It's a very good film. That's a solid follow-up to Horror of Dracula. And you have Christopher Lee returning after, he wasn't in the second one. So it's great to have him back. The only thing that really bothers me, and it always has, is that Christopher Lee has no lines in the movie. Now, he still manages to be menacing and intense, and intimidating. But when you got a guy like Christopher Lee that has such a commanding presence, such a commanding voice, and that deep kind of baritone, I want to hear him talk, and that's totally missing. And it is like something missing for me, But it's still a good film. It's just not one of my favorite in the series. Number 13 is, what is your favorite overall horror sequel of all time? So once again, I hate to beat a dead horse, but it's going to be Halloween 2 from 1981 is my favorite horror sequel of all time. I absolutely love it. Alright guys, that is the Revenge of the Horror sequel tag. So I'm going to tag some people. I'm going to tag my fellow cohorts from the Horror Hangout live stream. So yeah, everybody in the Horror Hangout live stream, if you could take a part in this tag, if you have the time. I know this is a very busy time of year for us YouTubers, but if you can get to it, it would be great. Also going to tag my buddies in the Morbid Hour live stream. And I'm going to tag RD from RD Horrorfest. Yeah, so Rob, if you want to do this tag, I think it'll be great to see the original guy who did the original horror sequel tag getting in on the fun. So let's have some fun, guys, and do the horror sequel tag. And this is the Revenge of the Horror sequel tag. Answer the call, and thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, in the Horror Corner. And tune in and stay scared. Good evening, folks, and we got some brand new merchandise for you over at www.thehorrorcona.com, and that's CONA.com. Representing the Horror Corner. Great new design. We got the Morbid Hour live stream there, you got the Horror Hangout live stream there, and you got my nemesis, the Dark Fate. So grab your t-shirt over at www.thehorrorcona.com. And we also got this beautiful new mug. Look at that. Very, very cool. Thought that came out really nice. So grab your merchandise today over at www.thehorrorcona.com. Folks, don't forget to grab your Sean Patrick Erschen gear and represent the Horror Corner. Also, check out these awesome mugs we have. Perfect for your coffee. And definitely check out the Horror Hangout live stream t-shirt and represent the legacy of the Horror Hangout. Check out the link in the description below this video.